this computer. There we go. Hello, hello. It's La Femme Salon. It's week number 3, if you can believe it already. Aloha to Miss Kari in Hawaii, and Sue, we're sending you some loving, healing vibes coming along. So today, last week, actually, we had gone into a little bit about intuition. And I just wanted to touch base first, kind of open it up to you if there was anything that you wanted to share about the homework of listening to your intuition, or a couple of there was the smorgasbord for you to pick and choose from. So if there was something that you dove into that you wanted to share, let me know, and we'll do that first.
So I did not receive an email since we met last, so I don't know what the homework was or anything.
Oh, no. I thought you meant for
again,
this week. Okay. I'll make sure that's so weird.
If you sent out anything.
I don't have number 3. I don't have anything for week 3.
Oh, okay. So I have week 2, like the last week stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, I have that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way I'm doing it is I'm sending so we'll review it together on the Zoom, and that way I can record it and I'll upload the recording to YouTube. So you've got both, instead of getting double emails from me all the time, then you'll have one that's got today's recording and then the material that go along with it.
Okay. Well, I don't even know if I read this, but we talked about it, and here's what happened. I had this intuition of, so joining this group was because I really was aware of needing to up my own personal self-care, because I work with women about it all the time. So joining this, so then my awareness was, what have I done? I am so busy, putting this in my schedule 2 times a week. And I said, okay, it's just for 10 weeks and it's self-care. But one of so the next thing I did, so I mean, it was just an interesting awareness of like, no, damn it, I'm doing this for myself. And, but what I did is I had a hit. I at one point, I've done yoga for years, and my studio closed down during COVID and it never reopened. It was an awesome studio down here. And I gave away all my yoga books because I purge all the time and like declutter. And I had a hit to get a restorative yoga book. So I got a really awesome restorative yoga book. And then I found a new yoga studio. And Saturday I went to turned out to be a restorative class. And I bought a pass, and I'm going to go back every week. And I'm doing restorative yoga at home because I have all my props. So I think that's what came out of it for me, was like, I mean, I don't even know if I really read, I kind of glanced through this, but I think I'm doing it through osmosis, like just the energy of the whole thing is in me. Like, okay, I chose this class because I knew I needed to do more self-care. And
and that's just it. And we get the hit, but you did the crucial step of taking action on it right away, because otherwise it'll go away and it'll, we lose momentum with that. So it's almost just like flexing the intuition / action muscle, and we're getting hits all the time, like source or the universe or whoever it is up there is leaving us proof and little bird seeds all the time, I believe, to move in the direction of what it is that we most desire in our lives. The other thing that I love, your teapot.
So I found this yoga studio that it's like a franchise, but it's great, it's local owners, and they have acupuncture, massage, yoga, and a tea bar. And which I could go there with my computer and sit there and drink tea. Like I'm a tea freak, like loose leaf, high quality tea from around the world. So yeah, I even bought loose leaf tea, and I bought and then I came home and I said, okay, I don't like my restorative yoga props because they're old and I didn't like the color anymore. And I bought new blocks, new bolster, new blanket. Like, I don't know, isn't that interesting? And so yes, that one little hit cost me a bunch of money, but it was very therapeutic. And I'm supposed to be getting all my yoga stuff today. And
Nice.
and then I went through. This is my home office, but it's also my yoga room. So I went through my thing where I have all sorts of things, and I cleaned out all sorts of old exercise props that I don't use anymore. So I decluttered. And
And when the new comes in, it'll feel luxurious. And so,
I know.
the things we want to be on the lookout is kind of like using that reticular activating system. Is your original desire was to have the ease and flow and the self-care. It's like, look for all the ways in which that's showing up. And now this luxury of that, like, spoil yourself. And it'll be cool, Erin, because like you said, it's like you wanted this class to be as part of the self-care choice. And then next week is our breathe week. So it gives you time to, like, you'll have that hour. It'll be interesting because you carved out the time and now you'll have the time back in a way, but it'll give you, what else is possible during that time. So.
Yeah, because next week I've got a new potential patient or client in one of those spots. So it was kind of perfect timing,
Yeah. And like you said, I think you and I talked individually about this, of just the time, because your business, you've laid the work and it's happening. And so to acknowledge yourself all the time, like I want to celebrate together when you have new clients coming in, so that we get, like, celebrate the work part, and then equally diligent about celebrating your off time. So you had the time over the weekend with your honey. Did you go?
Did. I actually didn't work all weekend because I've been so busy.
Okay, so that's huge.
And you know what? Saturday was all about self-care. And then Sunday we took a walk around Harriman Lake, and then I just did some things. I read, I watched Netflix. We didn't really do anything for Easter because it's just the two of us. So we just kind of hung out, and I didn't have to do anything.
Yeah. And so we'll help you acknowledge and celebrate that, because I think so much of it, and this is true of all of us, it's like so much of it is already here and we forget to acknowledge, where we sometimes fall into the gap of, like, what I want isn't here. It's almost like a habit of thinking, well, that money's not here, or that opportunity.
Well, and what do I want my life to be like? It's like, I don't want to work 7 days a week. And there was some time when but I was also finishing a coaching certification, but I was seriously working 7 days a week. Well, okay, this is not what I want to do. I want to work less and make more.
Yeah. Are you done with that coaching certification?
What's that?
Are you done now with the coaching certification?
No, I finished it. I got certified in early February, but but I'm going for the national board certification. So I had to finish a 21-hour lifestyle medicine course. So I just finished like last Saturday in 1 hour. I finished that. And now I have to, I'm moving towards that. I have to take that exam in October. So yeah.
Well, that's a big sigh of relief too.
Yeah.
She's happy.
Exciting.
She's rolling. Awesome. And I wanted to share the story that Sue shared with me. So one of her things also, like you, is just to wanting to appreciate some of the joy that's around her right now. And she loves to garden, but she doesn't like stepping out into her garden at this time of year when there's all the leaves and all the prep work that needs to be done, because they get a lot of leaves. And so she's like, okay, the desire, the ask of the universe was, how can this be easy and joyful for me? And the next day she gets a knock at the door from a high school age kid that lives next door. And they were doing an act of kindness kind of challenge for themselves, he and a couple friends. And so they said, is there anything we can help you with? And she's like, yeah, you can help me with the leaves. So he, 3 more friends came over, and so leaves be gone. So,
oh my gosh, ask and you shall receive.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Isn't that funny? Very funny.
Yeah, that's fun.
Well, then, and Kari having joy in Hawaii. So I wanted to dive right into today's little thingy, my Bob. Da-da-da. This is Week 3, divine feminine females honor the women they've become. And this, again, is just like one of those habitual things that women, we don't do for ourselves. So it's almost like we get in the habit of not acknowledging. We're always striving for the next thing. So this week is about taking the little pause button on where you're going for a moment and recognize the things that we've been through. One of the pivotal stories that I love, it came from Sue Morter, Dr. Sue Morter. Erin, you probably familiar with her. I just love this because what happens to us as kids is that we all have had our own little journey, the crash and burns. We've had, like, my story was the dad's story who was a cheater. He started another family, kind of ran off. And so there was abandonment and trust issues. And, he was kind of the angry dad when he was home. Up until the age of 6 is when they got divorced. So I had lots of programming and defense mechanisms, and our little brains make meaning out of the things that happen. And a lot of times, because our brains are still developing up until the age of about 8 or 9, we're just like absorbing everything that comes in. And a lot of times we're personalizing it, like the mom and dad are fighting. Somehow it means I'm not a good kid. And so to whatever degree that we might have experienced that, we might have that little tape running in the background. Monica, I thought I saw you shaking your head. I'm just wondering if you had anything like that happening, or.
I was thinking of something completely else. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. So a lot of times we create meaning, and the meaning is just subjective. So what this week is about is, because we go into so much the unworthiness of who we are, the fear about whether we're going to measure up. Can I take this next big step in my life? Who am I to shine like that? And actually, this is the time for us to ask the other questions of, like, who are you not to shine like that? So the goal of this week is actually to flip the story that we've been using up until now. And the story that Sue Morter shares is actually a great way for us to understand that we are spiritual beings having this human experience. And a lot of this was kind of like set up for our own personal growth, that it's actually the perfect obstacles are laid in our way to help us to hone the gifts that we are here to experience. Like, I need to remember the thing when it comes around on Facebook, you'll see it occasionally. It's like, I asked for patience and God gave me traffic. It's like just the opposite of what you think you would have, like ease and joy, is like, no, I gave you traffic so you could exercise that patience muscle. It's like, well, think about all those hardships. For me with the crummy dad story, I became strong and independent and, strong-willed, and there's all these good things that became of it, that are part of my personality. And at this moment in time, I get to press the pause button and say, and what else how would I like to balance that out? So for a long time I was like overly independent, meaning I wouldn't want to allow people into my life to love and support me, because I didn't want to become dependent on them lest they go away. Then I have the crash and burn again. So we set up the defense mechanisms against the pain, but it's like, oh wait, what if I can be independent and be open to give and receive with people intimately in my life? But I love the way Sue Morter tease this story up. She calls it the bus stop conversation. So you can imagine this. Here we are, these little souls. We're sitting up there on a cloud in heaven, waiting for our turn to come back down into this crazy earth school, right? And we're sitting there having conversations. So one soul says to the next, like, for me, maybe I wanted to experience forgiveness. And so the next soul says, oh, okay, I'll be the crummy dad, that comes and heads out, and leaves you guys. Somebody else says, okay, I want to experience forgiveness in my way. And the next soul over might say, okay, I'll be the drunk driver that comes down and mows over your family. And so it's like we have all these these agreements that our soul wants to come and experience. And then we cast the perfect characters in those roles to give us the obstacle, the contrast, if you will, so that we get to work our way through those experiences and come out on the other side with the very thing that it was that we wanted to express more deeply. So it's kind of a backwards way of, kind of flipping the story, if you will. But one of the powerful things and the practice for this week will be just a quick contemplation to go back and think of like 4 or 5 of the pivotal times in your life where you made certain decisions and you went a certain way, or you chose to get married, you chose not to get married, you chose to go to this school or that school, or whatever those things were. And we've probably kind of done this kind of timeline before, like, what have I done? But we ask a couple additional questions, which are, what was my soul seeking to experience at that time? And so it's really fascinating when you kind of go back and you do the review and then you connect the through line from the soul's perspective, you begin to see some of the richness that your personality came here to experience this time around. It's really powerful, and it can help you to find like you've probably done forgiveness work before up until now, and you've gotten to a certain level, and all of a sudden when you do this, it's like the last bit that might have been holding on in the background, we're not even aware that that's still even a thing for us. The last thing just like opens up, and your release on that situation, on those characters, all of it just begins to open up, and there's an amazing space of openness and possibility that happens as a result of that. So this week is actually kind of short and sweet. I'm going to review what's here on the handout, and again I'll send this out as soon as the Zoom recording has been processed and uploaded, so I'll send this along. But essentially it's our opportunity to get those pieces. And up until now, we might have judged ourselves because of that. Now we get to bring all that back into the wholeness of who we are. So how long have you been carrying around the story of childhood wounds? Many of those left us with a sense of abandonment or unworthiness, not deserving of love, and a myriad of other things, just beliefs. By holding on to the blame, shame, and regret that comes with it, we are giving our power away. And oftentimes we're splittering ourselves to those people. So again, this is just the bus stop conversation, Sue Mortar, just a fresh perspective. There we are. So this kind of just explains a little bit of what I just kind of walked through. And we get to come out now honoring that we're stronger, we're wiser, we're more self-assured on the other side of the wounds that we've experienced up until now. Not in spite of that past, not because we fought so hard to overcome it, but it was like a gift in our life. So who are you as a result of some of the crash and burns that left you perfectly ready for this moment now? So the invitation then becomes to shift. Instead of pointing the finger at the villains out there that maybe hurt us, you can ask the question of what good came from that soul contract experience. And like I said, being strong and independent, you might have discovered that you get to be the source of your own self-love and confidence. And I think this is the pivotal time for women in our 50s. It's kind of the time that we look for that. We've been getting a lot of our satisfaction from raising the kids or the other roles that we might have had up until now, the jobs or the businesses that we've grown up until now. Super great source of satisfaction. And now it's a time for us to pause and recognize that we get to be the source of that love and confidence for ourselves in a new and refreshing way. And then when we set out on these next paths that we're looking for, we get to shine even brighter. So perhaps you now have a deep level of compassion and have strong personal boundaries, or a deep understanding that you deserve success, love, and all the good things in life, or that we get to have those things without the source of, the feeling of struggle and working hard to have it play out. So it's good to kind of maybe overlay that with the divine feminine shifts that we had talked about in week 1. But like I said, it's just a beautiful thing if you're able to let go of the story about the hurt and embrace the gift in all of it. So when we make that shift, the focus allows you to own those bits of yourself and be thankful for everybody who kind of contributed to that role. So release your wounds and embrace the gift. But I think Brene Brown has such a beautiful way of summing things up like this. You either walk inside your story and own it, or you stand outside your story and hustle for your worthiness. So when you think of all the decisions that we make and the energy we put into proving our worthiness, it's like that adds up. It's like a penny a day over time is really going to add up over time. So here's the practice for this week is, and again, the intention here is honoring the woman that you are today. So taking your story, how did you become this amazing woman that you are? So this, I just call the timelining, to pull those golden threads through all those definitive moments in your life. Kind of look back, do a timeline, and think of the pivotal moments, the defining points, the choice points that had the greatest influence on your life. For each of those episodes, here's the questions that you'd ask. So what impact did that have on you? What was your soul yearning for? What unconscious commitments did you make as a result? And maybe how would you like to rewrite those now, right? And how have this served you up until now and contribute to making you the amazing woman that you are today? So it's, again, this is not meant to be a heavy thing. You can really just a sentence or two on each of these things, but just spend the extra couple moments to write down like 4 or 5 sentences on how this soul was impacted and what the choice is available to you now. So at this moment in time, we can just bring that through line right up until now and make that conscious decision. Do I want to keep making decisions and go in the direction based on the things that I've experienced up until now? And maybe there's a whole new soul calling, or it refreshes, it helps us to like you, Erin, the calling that you're on now, to have moved out of the acupuncture and the chiropractic world, and now this calling to, maybe it looked like being hands off, but it helps you to connect to maybe an even deeper why of like, you know what, the reason I got into this in the first place was really to help people live their most vibrant, healthy lives, because, and you get to some of that really core, juicy stuff about this is why I'm here. The reason this happened, the reason, I don't know what your story is, but my story, watching my mom have the crash and burn with the experiencing the stroke, and how how little understanding we had about all the different elements that go into helping us live healthy and vibrantly alive, and how important it is to be plugged into these things that bring us joy and that passion, those passion projects. To me, when we're plugged into our purpose and passion, that's what brings vitality into our world. And then some of those other things are easier to put into place. It's like, we thought my roommate or whoever has the anger issue, but what if the real thing is that he's not aligned with what it is that brings him joy? He's got some old timelines and commitments he's feeling he's still needs to take care of, that if he would just let those go, there's a whole new life waiting for him on the other side of this, that right now he's still holding on to the old story and the need to prove himself to be a loyal husband or the dedicated father, these roles. It's like, well, you can do that and begin to move on to something that brings your life more joy and ease and fulfillment. A lot more fun and play. And then the second one, and again, you've probably heard this, maybe been exposed to it, but forgiveness. Forgiveness leads to freedom. And to me, one of the simplest and most beautiful practices is a Hawaiian forgiveness prayer called Ho'oponopono. And it's super simple. It's just 4 little words. But I love the story of Ho'oponopono about the fellow who created it was a Hawaiian fellow, and the people, he actually did some prayer work with people um, in the prisons back in the day, and he just boiled it down to these 4 simple little stories, the sentences. I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, and I thank you. And so the intention with this is, again, I think of everywhere that we're still holding on to resentments or old storylines. It's almost like an S hook. So we're still kind of hooked in there. It's allowing they're still hooked in because we are, and as soon as you let that go, like it lets go. It's kind of like decluttering of that old, just the psyche, everything in the subconscious is still replaying those old roles, and the need to protect ourselves lest we experience that pain again. When we stop feeling the pain, then we stop having the need to protect ourselves all the time, and all that protection takes a lot of energy in our world. So but I like this sense, you sit in silence and visualize bring up the situation. You got the people. A lot of times we think of forgiveness in terms of the people, but what was our individual role in it as well? And again, maybe we engaged in that for a certain soul growth or whatever that was, but also, what was our role in it? And look at the situation as a whole. So we're going to let go of the other person. We're going to forgive ourselves. That's the other thing. We don't only forgive in an outward orientation of forgiving, like my dad, for instance, for how his behavior might have impacted me and my family. I get to forgive myself for all the ways in which I've perpetuated that all these years. It's like, well, geez, that's an old storyline before I was 10 years old, and you see, gosh, so much women in our 50s, and we're still having that resentment for something that our parents did. It's like, well, we've had 30, 40 some odd years to write a new story. It's like, okay. And it's a beautiful process. For Andrea, who went through this in the first group, she went through this, and her mom had been a narcissistic influence in her life and not a source of unconditional love. And she had a lot of wounding and healing to do on the other side of this. And so her mom had never been close or a major player in her whole life. And through doing the Ho'oponopono process and the forgiveness stuff, her mom, who lives in Missouri right now, is on her final descent out of this human experience. And Andrea was able to go there and just be present with her, recognizing that this was somebody who played a role in my life, not necessarily the role I wish she had played. And to be able to come in with a heart of unconditional love and be present for her mom, even though, there was lots of reasons not to be supportive and loving, she chose, because her commitment to herself is, I want to be someone who shows up as unconditional and loving and supportive of those around me, especially family. And so it allowed her to unplug from the other drama dynamics that are happening in the family. I don't know about yours, but some families can get pretty charged around old storylines, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's so. I've got 3 older sisters, and some to watch some of the dynamics, it's just downright painful to watch as they are harboring old resentments against one another that are so old, literally before the age of 10. And they're in their 60s still replaying some of this. And it feels like just soccer boppers back and forth, when it's like they really do love each other and want to be friends with one another, and they can't allow the story aspect to take that out, set that aside, and now let's start being loving and supportive for one another. So anyways, these are the only 2 processes for this week, is just to sit and just kind of think, what are 4 or 5 of the most pivotal moments or things, that defining moments in my life, and what was it that I really got out of this? What the gift that I want to give myself now is this amazing woman who's independent and I wants to show up like Andrea. She made the commitment. I want to be unconditionally loving and compassionate to everyone. So what is the gift that you are willing to step into for yourself, the amazing woman you are, and allow yourself to not only give that to everyone, and that's what we do commonly, is we're giving so much to everybody else, we forget to spend a moment and say, oh, if I gifted myself that same amount of unconditional love and compassion, what would that look like and feel like for ourselves? It could be pretty powerful. So, and that's simply what you do. So call up the thing, consider what the soul messages were about that, and then just do this simple process. I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, and I love you. And it just is simple and liberating, truly, as you begin to integrate the wisdom, as you release the need to hold on to the wound. So get the wisdom, let go of the wound. In the email, when I send it out, there's a woman that I discovered on YouTube. Her name's Sonia Rollis, and she has a recording of Ho'oponopono. She's from Brazil, and she's got this gorgeous accent, and her voice is just like so healing just to listen to. But she's got a beautiful Ho'opono recording, and if you are interested in taking it just a step deeper, if you listen to it, I think it's about 20 minutes just before you go to bed. Like, bring up the situation, kind of allow that to run as you slip off to sleep, and allow yourself to marinate in that beautiful essence of forgiveness overnight. Like, if there's anything you were hanging on to before, I think it'll be pretty well dissolved by the time you listen to that a time or two. It's pretty powerful. But anyways, Monica, what's your story? Do you have any good ones from
what I'm holding on to? Like,
yeah.
Just as you were talking about it, I had a couple that came up for sure. One was a really good close friend of mine, who also lived in Denver at the time. And we were really, really close friends. Like, we would, meet on a regular basis. She had two younger kids than mine, a boy and a girl. They were kind of like 10 years younger maybe than my kids, but we just would meet in a park, at a playground, just for a picnic or something. And her husband was like he still is. He is a person who's very, very much like a go-getter, but also in some shady ways, let's say. So he's like somebody who would want power, and he would like manipulate people maybe for his advantage to get power, and so we had a fallout because of her husband. Basically, her husband thought that I was like talking to other people against him, which I was not, but him being the person who is a little bit, whose tools are not always like very honest, I think he just took it very hard, whatever happened. And I think he literally forbade her to talk to me after, or something like that. Basically, she and I did not talk since then. And like, we're still friends on Facebook. She didn't like unfriend me, and I didn't unfriend. So we see what's happening. She moved back to her home country, Romania. She was also Hungarian, but they both moved back to Romania. And now her kids, it's been probably like a good 5 years, 4 years that they moved back, and we had the fallout maybe like a year before that. But it's still, to this day, is like a pain. And I hope that she feels the same painful, little, poking at her heart that this is not the way it should be.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Sometimes I think when we're thinking of people, they're also thinking of us. I like to think of that. So I wonder, and it's cool because you don't necessarily have to reach out to obviously do this process. It happens and they'll feel it. So you never know, you might do this and receive a message from her in one way or another.
Maybe, because I think if it wasn't her husband, like, she and I would have made up like long time ago.
Yeah, it's too bad, but awesome. So that is the down and dirty for this week. Erin, do you have any fun stories you'd like to bring present?
I don't know. I really have to think. I mean, think about, I'm sure there's plenty. I can't really think of anything in particular. So we're looking for stories that are,
Well, what are the protection mechanisms that you have up today? Are you, and yeah, you're an only child, right?
child. Yeah.
And
I mean,
your husband is too, right?
yeah, and my husband is too.
Pretty
And,
uncanny.
I mean, I'm sure I have family stuff. I mean, if we're talking about things that like kind of wounded us, then
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I can think of one. Like my dad and I, like, I mean, it's like we were from different planets. You know, he never got me, you know. So I was the humanoid, of course. So so I remember when I was going to chiropractic college, and you know, it's like he said, well, you just need to marry a rich man. like you know, I mean, they never ever talked to me about going to college or doing anything. I mean, I was kind of on the path to become a professional musician, but yeah, they never ever I mean, like you have kids, right, Monica? And you sit down with your kids now, probably when they're like sophomores, and start talking about college. And, back then in, the late 70s, it was just like, well, get married and marry a rich man. And
I have a friend just like you and your dad's like her. She has 3 siblings, and only one of them is a boy, the youngest one. And actually, their dad just recently passed away in the last year or so. He lived a very long life, like 90 some years. And he would always tell the girls that they're practically useless. There's no reason to go to college or anything or study. Basically, marry a rich guy, just like you said. And by the way, he's going to leave all his money, which he accumulated, I heard, quite a bit by the end of his life, because he always worked hard and he was frugal. And so he always told the girls that he's planning to leave all his money to the youngest one only, the boy, because girls are just not valuable.
oh my gosh.
Wow.
So you just reminded me of her. She was here
Yeah,
at my house. We had coffee this morning.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, it's a whole different generation. And so of course I did everything to prove him wrong, and well, I'm not going to depend on a man.
Yeah. And it's funny because sometimes it's well-intended advice. Like my dad said, oh, I wanted to be, well, back then I was watching Bewitched, and Darren Stevens was, he worked in an advertising agency as a creative director. And I'm like, oh, that looks like fun. Like, I know, at age 8 or whatever I was. And my dad said, oh, that's a competitive field. Go be an accountant, because the world always needs accountants. And my dad, just like yours, just had a way of jabbing constantly of like, you're worthless, like just, but it's amazing how long I fought. And so like in Access Consciousness, we talk about you either align and agree with it. At first I'm like, okay. And so I thought I'll go be an accountant, and thank God my mom got me a summertime job to try it out. And I realized, no way. But like I could have spent a lot of time and money following that trailhead. I'd not, so we've got either align and agree, or we resist and react. And so we do the exact opposite. So it took me a long time to come back to what it was, but I ended up, my first job out of school was in graphic design in an ad agency. So, it's kind of funny how hopefully we get back to our track, but even making the same decision, if it's in reaction to proving somebody wrong, it distills the authenticity of us making our choice and living life based on our own choices. And when you, like, what's her name, the Kubler-Ross, that the 5 regrets of the dying, the number one is that I wish I'd had the courage to live life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And so in that, I would also throw everywhere we're trying to align and agree and get somebody's, like it was interesting to watch when my folks divorced. My sisters had had my dad in their lives so longer than I did. I was kind of detached because he was kind of an angry dad when he was around. So it's nothing that I wanted in my life anyways, but they were clinging, wanting his approval all the time, and to watch the gyrations to try to mold themselves to become who they thought he wanted them to be. It was sad to watch, over time. And even now, some of the, and decades later, it's crazy how long this stuff can stick with us. But the decisions that we make, like one of my sisters is still married, that unhappily, because she made a decision way back when to never divorce like my parents did. And she doesn't have the freedom to choose something she doesn't recognize because she's got that oath. So how many oaths, vows, commitments, and fealties, from this lifetime and previous lifetimes, and God knows where else have we picked up, that we thought, okay, this is the way to be the good wife or the good something. And what if we gave ourselves the grace to choose again right now? So based on where we are now, it's like, okay, I did that well up until now, and starting now, the reset button. And fascinating.
Well, it's interesting too how you're and your three sisters, because you're different ages, have such a different experience. And also that we're really seeing that it's what you make of it. Because look what you've done versus if you've worked on clearing that, and you recognize it, you're getting over it, or have I guess I can't think of the word, but
yeah, well, there's definite awarenesses, like you said. It's like, well, I saw all the time that everybody, here's one storyline that's playing out. The folks are not gelling, they're fighting, whatever, it's time to move on. And then each of them have a different perspective of what was happening of this one event. And it's like, well, there is, to me, so the awareness I had even as a young kid is there is no truth. The truth is coming through our own perception of what's happening. And so again, to try to watch how they would meld themselves to try to win approval from someone who was never going to give them approval, it was painful to watch. So I had some great awarenesses from there, but I also had some twisted ones that took me a long time to untwist about, okay, well, I'm going to be independent, because if you're dependent on a man and he goes away, then the whole world gets turned upside down on you. It's like, oh, well, how long did I resist that? And some of the relationships, poor guys, sorry. All the ways I was emotionally unavailable. And then you go into the relationship like that, and I attracted men who are on that vibe. They're emotionally unavailable, but deep down we want the love. And so I was trying to protect myself against being cheated on. And I was on a stretch there 100% of the time. The men would cheat on me. And it was because I wasn't being open, even though they were self-professing that they, didn't want commitment. They truly did at their core. And so it was uncanny until I'll never forget. So here, my coping technique was to go out with geeky guys, because I didn't want to compete, dating a good looking guy, because everybody would want them. So I would go for the geeky guys, and I would go for geekier, and every time, cheat, okay, geekier. And then finally I found Robert, and I'm like, okay, I am so safe with Robert. He is the geekiest guy on the face of the planet. And sure enough, if Robert didn't find interesting another Kathy who did triathlon, and God bless him, he made the right decision to go off with her, because it was like, I was at the rock bottom. I'm like, there is no one geekier than this, and something's got to change. And I'll never forget, I was doing, that was when I first started studying Buddhism and doing some meditation. And I went to see this fellow, JC, and he did energy work on me. I laid on the table and he put his hands on, and he says, this has nothing to do with these guys. And I'm like, I know. It had to do with forgiveness from my dad. So it was amazing, because first his hands were like on fire, but then anger and resentment, all that sits in the body. He literally was like pulling it out of my liver, which is where anger likes to hang out. And it felt like almost palpable, like he was pulling it out in the clown act in the circus that just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. And it was like, there's a lot of shit in there. And then he pulled it out. And from that day on, I've never worried about trust issues. That it's never shown up on my radar. So it's like the very things that we are resisting are going to persist. So if there's a pattern that's showing up in your life right now that's uncomfortable, that you're wishing would stop repeating, just ask, okay, what is it? Is it like me that trusts, it's interesting. All of you ladies have been married for a long time. So that's not your particular lesson this go round, but we all have that thing. So
yeah, we all have something, I'm sure. But I was thinking the same thing Annie was talking about. You should sign your sisters up to the Femme Salon and work on them a little bit. So they
They
can
need this work. Yeah, they need this.
yeah.
Thank you.
And one of the things you learn as a healer is that you can lead the horse to water, but they certainly will not drink.
Absolutely. That's
my
very
my
true.
horses are not that thirsty that they're willing to drink quite yet, but
Yeah, maybe in a few years, hopefully, right?
yeah, actually it'll be fascinating because my older sisters, by the way, everything that happens that we talk about in La Femme Salon stays in La Femme Salon. If you meet my sisters, don't tell them I told you all this, but my oldest sister is the only one that had kids because the rest of us didn't want to pass on
Oh,
crummy patterns. And she's also the only one that stayed married and to this crummy guy. And I'm guessing this time next year won't be here. So it'll be fascinating to see what in her life disintegrates. So sometimes we need to allow all that to fall apart so that the new growth comes. So it'll be interesting to see. But
yeah,
again, we all
yeah.
have
'Cause forgiveness is about recognizing that maybe parents or your dad did really shitty things, but there's no free. I mean, it's like they still did the best they could with what they had at the time, because unless they intentionally abuse, somebody, but
yeah. So it's cool where I've gotten to with my dad. So the Dr. Sue Mortar's bus stop conversation helped me to see that my dad played the perfect role as the villain. And I'm like, I wish he hadn't overplayed it so much, but it's like, because of that, I've got these amazing gifts. And I recognize, like, if I stop making him the villain, then who could he be in my life? And unfortunately he had already passed over by the time I was coming to some of this, but now I've got a completely different vision of him sitting up on the cloud, like cheering me on. And now he's my greatest. Well, my mom's up there too. She's my greatest. He's number 2. But he's cheering me on. And I actually had a dream not too long ago, which is super weird because he's never been communicative from the other side. And I was climbing up a mountain and there was something slippery and I reached up and there was a hand there to grab me, and it was my dad. And it was crazy because, like, I mean, literally, I can't think of anything he ever helped me with in my life. Yeah, so it was so cool to have that knee-jerk reaction of like it's my dad, and then thinking, oh my gosh, he's here to love and support me. So it's like the coolest thing. It just feels like it's completely resolved. I'm I guess grateful, if you want to say it, for that. But what if and maybe your villain is something completely different. It might be a job that left you feeling whatever. My college was a good source for growth. Contrast.
Good source for growth.
Think about it. That was a good source for growth. Yes.
Yeah. As a Catholic going to a Southern Baptist school, there was lots of interesting points of view that I encountered. And I had a chance to mirror that back for me of what shake me out of the beliefs that, dogma that we just buy into because it's a family belief, or it's a religion, or it's our societies, or it's, it's just the way things are. Like your dad saying, go get married. It's like, how much of this is just beliefs that we've taken on just because. So, sometimes it takes that friction from outside to recognize that we get to self-source some of this stuff and allow ourselves to receive support in it in different ways that we never would have imagined based on the old, the way we form and structure that we'd created for ourselves. I'm just thinking about Sue and her situation as a teacher. Oftentimes women, our role in the society is outward focus and supporting everyone around us, that we forget to allow that for ourselves. So I think that's what the greatest gift that we can give ourselves right now is to receive. And so Erin might be receiving more ease and joy and recognizing that, I don't know, the 6-figure business is literally like right here for you, girl. And to allow that to flow, allow you to put the old working hard to make it happen. You've done the due diligence, and now you just get the fun part of shining so that people can find you.
And adding in the self-care, like not adding in more work, adding in more for me, because that's what it's all about,
Yeah. And recognizing when you get that, oh, this is my calling, like this is my joy, and that's the space I'm at, even with La Femme Salon, of like, I've got the old tickies of marketing and how you do it and figuring out some of that stuff. But it's like, in the end, it's like, no, this, I just get to shine with joy and allow that to be the attraction factor that people find you, and they'll come in the squirreliest of ways that you couldn't have imagined, but with ease and joy. That's the intention. Monica, what's
Hey,
your
Kathy. No, I was gonna ask you about, nobody has talked about the mirror gazing experience. I don't even know if anybody has tried it. I tried it one time. I'm just saying.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. The first 2-3 minutes, I literally was just noticing everybody that was wrong with my face. I'm like, okay,
yes,
what's going on?
This is a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. And then around the 3.5 minute, time frame, I was like, oh, okay, let's think about something that's good about me. That was a really interesting. Yes, it's a long time to look at yourself and go through with your thought processes, right?
it
At
is.
the end, I feel like I still like myself more than not, but it took me the first initial 3.5 minutes to get over all the issues I can find wrong with me.
Yeah. And what if that's just a pattern that we picked up from the rest of the world? Is like, okay, we'll leave that for the rest of them. I'll get to choose how you felt at the end of like, wow, look at that beautiful smile. And I love, the eyes are the window to the soul. I love the soul that I see shining through those eyes. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's interesting.
Yeah. At first it's like, wow, you're just here like, wow, counting all the crow's feet and man, I wish my mom hadn't given me those. And then it's like, after a while, you can actually sink down and be more present with yourself. But I actually took the challenge to do it. I need to do it again because just as you did, as you softened over the course of that 10 minutes, when you do it for like a week, after about the 3rd day, you're able to quickly just sit down and be present with it. And it's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I have to do it more than once for sure. Yes. It's a cool exercise. I like it.
Yeah. That's from Louise Hay. Dr. Christian Northrup, who Erin and I both adore. She says it's one of the most powerful exercises she shares with her clients even now.
Really?
When you think, and she's a doctor dealing with women's health issues, and if ever, most of it, have you found the same thing? So much of it stems with just some of that core worthiness and finding our own beauty, Erin.
I think as young girls, we're just not ever taught the skills to actually, and I think, you've got all the images. we were teen girls and we had the teen magazines, and then, you know, all the perfect teen girls and the teen magazines, and I don't look like that. So then that's, you know, I think there's just all of that. And even in, you know, like what, 40 years later, 50 years later, it's like,
And then weird when you start doing the math. Wait a second, I'm how old again? Ageless.
yeah, now I just say I don't care. It's like, you know, like just.
There is a beautiful thing about coming to this age where it's almost like, okay, I don't have anything left to prove to anyone at this moment in time. So it's like, okay, just give that and all that, imagine all that energy recycling back into our bodies now to just explore self-love and self-care and joy and whatever this next
Like I have a
endeavor
friend
is.
and she lives in Hawaii. I met her in Ventura, California, and we're like the same age. So I think she turned 60. And she always had this amazing, curly, beautiful, gorgeous hair. And now it is silver white. And it's actually stunning on her. And she's a massage therapist. And she said she had a client who told her that, well, your hair ages you. And she put a picture of her on Facebook. And like every single comment was like, you're stunning and your hair is absolutely stunning. And you know, just an interesting thing.
Yeah.
You know, about
Well, it
that.
is interesting. We can have 100 great compliments, and the one that we hear is that it sounds like she's over that, but
Oh yeah,
yeah.
totally. Yeah.
But up until now, it's like, okay, that might still be a little thorn in the back. It's like, oh, wait a second, I don't even care
Well, I
about
think
that
it's
person's
like, you
point
know,
of view.
maybe by this age you're accepting and you love it, and then you have somebody say this comment and it's like, you know, that would be, in my book, that would be rude to kind of say to anybody like,
Mhm.
like unless it's your best friend, but still, I mean,
She
you know,
was probably like a 20, 30-year-old.
yeah, she was
somebody.
like a client, so I don't know how old she was. That would be a good question. How old was this client, you know?
Oh,
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Or maybe this person was a hairdresser and imagine your friend's hair like in some beautiful red or blonde or something. And what would it be like if it was colored, right? Who
exactly.
knows?
you have a good perspective on things, Monica. What's your secret?
I don't know, but since I'm going through my rebranding, and I've been, even yesterday, I took a couple of tests, like Tony Robbins tests, like what's my biggest motivator? That was the test. And I took a color personality test not very long ago, but I did that one 2 years ago too. And I took the Enneagram test actually yesterday. I think I've done that probably 3-4 years ago, but I couldn't remember it, so I took it again. And I think one of my main traits is positivity, like being an optimist. So optimism is one of my top 2 or 3. So I don't know. I just, every time I go someplace or am with people, even if they have some sort of struggles and like real, you know, bad situations, I can show them the other side, why it's not as bad. Like it could be there's always a situation when it could be worse, right? It doesn't matter what your situation are. So to me, I really like being an optimist. But I just found out what the downside of that, I haven't thought of that before, is that this was I think in the Enneagram test, that I have a hard time accepting real sorrow and pain. And it's true, because one of my friends just got in the nursing home and she's 83 years old. I've known her probably for like 10 plus years, and I regularly met her. Like she calls me her friend, and true, we're friends, even though our age difference is large. But like I really have a hard time. I visited her now probably 4 times. The first time was really, really difficult to me, just to have to enter a nursing home. It was really difficult to see people that close to the end of their lives. And then so every time I go, I could not go several times a week. And now I figured out that I cannot go once a week either. I because it's too much sad truth is what I'm seeing. And that's really hard for me.
What's your Enneagram type? What did you?
I think I got 3, but also the 7 and 8 came like very close behind.
Oh.
But 3 was the one that stood out, I guess.
Do you know yours, Kathy?
I think I'm a very similar to Monica. I think I'm a 3, and 7 sounds familiar. It's been a long, long time. I'd have to
I've
do it
got
again.
mine. Yeah, I'm a 4. I'm not sure what my next one is, so I'd have to pull it out. So
Yeah, these are interesting things, right?
Yeah,
And,
I love
I
that.
think they change a little bit, right? I mean, the main traits probably stay, but you also always learn a little bit about yourself, and they shift a little bit as you enter a new period of your life, I guess.
Yeah. And that's a good thing, though, to look at the flip side of the very things that we think are our positive traits can also be a little challenging on the flip side. Interesting. All right. Well, we can keep it light and simple for this week. Thursday, I actually have a little visualization, but I'd be curious, Monica, when did you move here to the US?
When did I move here? I came here first in 96, but I didn't move here at the time. I was here for 2 years. And then I moved here like another 1.5 or 2 years later. And that would be 99. When I actually officially moved here.
So it's interesting because one of the core issues I find when I'm working with people is kind of that sense of a couple things. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. It's not safe. And I don't necessarily sense those from you. I'd be curious to know, part of it's an individual journey, and I'd be curious to know, like if there's different, different countries, if the experience is so different. I mean, obviously the US is.
When you say like when you work with people and those are the experiences, did you mean like people that are immigrants or foreigners or any people?
No, just women in general.
Oh, okay.
These are like
what were the 3 things? Say them again. Not
like
safe,
not worthy,
not worthy,
not lovable. Well, not deserving would be another one that's kind of related in there, and then it's not safe.
Oh, okay. I think not worthy is more of an international thing. I think sometimes I struggle with that, and I heard a lot of other people struggle with that are not American. So I think not worthy is like a very feminine trait, right? Especially when you took time off from work to raise kids and all that sort of thing, and then maybe you took off 10-15 years and you have to find your place in the world again. So I don't think that's like an American thing. But what were the other 2?
So worthiness,
Not safe,
not deserving, not safe, and not lovable.
No, I had this conversation with my mom a few years ago when things started to go like not so safe here in the US, right? Maybe a few years ago, we had the school shootings, the racial discrimination, we heard more and more news that were like very like unsafe, right? Like violent. And I asked her, I'm like, I literally just called her. I'm like, she and I talk a lot, but we don't talk on the phone all the time. We more like email or text each other like several times a week. I asked her if she shielded me from these things because I can't remember this many bad news events happening as a child. I feel like my childhood was very safe and pleasant, and we were not rich or anything. I was raised by a single mom. So, but we had a loving family. I feel like my school surroundings were very safe, and and she told me that she thinks because of, we just didn't know as up to date news, and the news channels weren't that developed, right? There were maybe like just not even an entire news channel dedicated on TV, just the evening news, so you didn't have access to the bad things really as much as you do now.
Yeah, now it's up to the minute and CNN's playing the same news thing 100 times over. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I got it already.
And seriously, if people like during these last 2 years, if they were like glued to the news, I think those people just became like a mess. Like I gave up on actually watching news
I don't
channels a
watch
while
any
ago.
TV news. I don't even have cable, and I did that on purpose. I just have Netflix and I have Amazon Video. So
There
I
you
don't
go.
see any. So I don't see any commercials, no TV commercials. Anyways, yeah. So
Yeah, I just read my news. I have my favorite app on my phone.
I read it
it's
online because then you can turn it on and off when you want. You don't have to
Right.
listen to these people yakking.
Yeah. So you're not influenced so directly by their look and the pictures, right? Video pictures, they're so powerful if it's bad news.
They are. I was reading, I found this fellow in Facebook. Gosh, I can't think of what country he's from. He might be from Romania, but he's a university professor over there and he teaches about world politics. And I reached out to him. I'm like, I wish I'd like to know here. And he had an article about pictures in the media. And just like you said, they're so well crafted, but they're not, half the time they're not even related to the story that they're being positioned with. It's like, okay, here's a bus that got blown up or something. And it's like, well, that's from 5 years ago. And people, there was a whole list of different stories that were very impactful because of the picture, the graphicness of the picture. And it wasn't even that, wasn't even the picture related to it. So, but
Yeah.
it sounds like we're all on a good path, unplugged.
Yeah, that's our
Unplugged,
secret.
yes.
All right. So with that, let's unplug here. Get on, and Thursday I've actually got a little process that I'll take us through to unplug with whatever one of those, if you've got any of those that resonate for you. But it's a pretty potent one to fluff this up. And then again, for next week is our breathe week. Time to go back and revisit a little bit of the processes that you might want to pick and choose. Erin, I said that, in that intuition module, there's a bunch of things. It's kind of like laying the smorgasbord. So kind
Yeah,
of pick
I
and
saw
choose.
that.
It's not meant to give you the whole do them all. Just pick something different to play with. But I like the path you're on, the self-care,
Yeah.
and celebrate
Now,
how.
Are you going to Dots tomorrow? I'm
I'm
I'll
coming.
see you there. So,
Are you?
so
I'm gonna pass because I leave on Friday, so everything gets condensed into these last couple days.
you're going to Hawaii, right?
So
Yeah.
nice. Where in Hawaii? Which island are you going to?
The Oahu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm actually going on a meeting gig,
Thanks.
which I stopped, but they asked if I could mentor one of their new people, and we're staying at Four Seasons. So I thought I could do that.
Sure.
I could do
You
that.
do that. Yeah.
Nice.
It'll be
Yeah.
tough, but you can do that.
Yeah, and Kari, who we only met online, she's there right now, and so we're like, oh my gosh, can we figure out a time that we can?
Wouldn't
And
that be
connect.
interesting? How cool would that be? Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, we'll stay virtual for now, but I know someday we'll meet in person. So very cool.
That's interesting. Very exciting for you. But we'll see you on Thursday then.
Yeah, we'll
right?
see you
Yeah.
Thursday. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Have fun tomorrow.
Bye.
Hey guys.